Physical distancing has come with lots of downsides, but it has also brought some incredible technology solutions that will outlive the pandemic for sure. With many activities being held online, reducing commuting, logistics, and space hire costs, I think online interviews will be here to stay. So today I thought I'd share some of my online interview tips. Hello everyone, my name is Surina Taneja. I'm a junior doctor working in the UK and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been doing a fair few interviews. I recently had my core surgical training interview online, and I've also been applying for jobs in Australia where most of the interviews are online or telephone based. At the end of last year, I was also on the other side as an interviewer, running mock interviews for final year students applying for academic foundation jobs. So I think I've accumulated a good amount of experience for online interviews, and I thought I'd put together everything I've learned and picked up and share it with you in this video. So I'm going to split this video up into 3 sections, which is you, your location, and your technology. Section number 1 is you. So if we think about this from the point of the interviewer or interviewers, the first thing they're going to do is to see you. And we know that first impressions are important. As I'm sure you already know, for most interviews you need to dress formally. That means top half and bottom half, because friends, I learnt the difficult way in my core surgical interview where I put on my formal interview top but kept on my trackies at the bottom. I didn't expect that the admin lady before my interview and my briefing asked me to do a full sweep of my room and my surroundings, and definitely saw I was wearing trackies. Luckily my actual interviewers were not present for this part, but nonetheless I was mortified, and I would advise everyone to just dress fully as they would for a normal face-to-face interview. I think it really helps with getting in the zone and not being too comfortable, and if there's any surprise sweeps or strange camera angles, at least you're covered. Next we'll talk about body language. So body language is still very important with online interviews. The interviewers will still very much be picking up on your non-verbal signals, even through the webcam. You'll probably be doing your interview somewhere you're quite familiar and comfortable in, like your bedroom or your home office, so it might be quite easy to relax without even realizing. But make sure you're, not slouching in your chair or being too still just because there's no people in front of you. There's always things you can do to look more enthusiastic. You can lean forward towards your camera. You can still use hand gestures to emphasize your points. Another thing to mention is, of course, eye contact. When you're speaking into a camera, it's quite easy to look at the screen where your face is and where the interviewer's face is. But if I do that on my viewfinder now, you can see that there's been a bit of a loss of connection between me and the audience because I'm no longer really maintaining eye contact with you. And now if I look in the camera, you can see how that changes. I think in my surgical interview I was staring at the screen, and in hindsight I wish I'd practiced looking into the camera directly to see what that feels like, to make sure that eye contact is held. And lastly, moving on to your voice. So your voice and the way you speak is a very powerful tool, not only because it makes up for what body language can't because of the distance, but also with online interviews there may be a bit of online fuzziness. There may be issues where your voice is breaking up a little, and you need to compensate for that. What I would suggest is to make sure you are enunciating maybe a little bit more than you usually do, pacing appropriately, and varying your tone as well, just so you can make up for any of these possible issues that might arise, and to also enhance your communication in an online setting even more. Next thing to think about is your location, and main things to consider is what your background will be. Now I would advise something quite plain, quite simple, perhaps just a plain wall or a bookshelf or something. Something like this wouldn't be ideal. There's obviously lots of distracting things, so make sure it's as simple as possible. Having said that, I would also make sure your wider environment, so the rest of the room, is also quite clean and presentable. Like I said in my surgical interview, I was asked to do a quick sweep of the room, which I wasn't expecting. But just in case something like that happens, or there's things in the frame that you didn't anticipate, make sure everything's clean and you've not got things like old clothes or anything lying around, just in case. Another important thing to think about is lighting. I would advise, if it's in daytime hours, to try and sit near a window, and natural light will be more than enough. If it is slightly darker, and especially now we're doing so many things online, I think investing in a inexpensive, simple light is also a good idea, and set it up on the desk in front of you so it's shining on you and lighting up your face for the interviewers to see. Try and avoid sources of light behind you. sort of bright lamps or windows, because that can cause all sorts of unwanted glare. Another good point someone made to me was, as well as checking your frame is okay in terms of the background and the lighting, also make sure what's being shown to the interviewers is what you want. So I would advise head, shoulders and a bit of torso, because otherwise, for example, if you're doing hand gestures and they're not actually on the screen because you've used a much smaller frame like up here, then it might just look like you're kind of awkwardly shuffling and you're not actually giving across the body language you wanted to. So make sure that you can kind of see the whole upper half of your body, because that will make your hand gestures and everything come across a lot more naturally. Essentially, the best thing to do would be to test out your interview frame on your webcam, just checking for any unexpected objects or items that you can see, and just making sure there's no glare in the background as well. Finally, the last thing to consider is your technology. So by that I don't mean you need to be rushing out to get fancy cameras and fancy audio devices. Just simple things, making sure your webcam is working and clean, making sure your audio is working. If you're using a laptop or tablet, I would advise having your charger plugged in for the duration. Check your internet speed is working well, and perhaps ask your other family members to make sure they're not doing any like internet intensive things like downloading or streaming just for the duration of your interview, to make sure you've got the best possible internet speed. Also make sure you've got access to any apps and things you might need. So with my surgical interview, I for some reason thought it was on Zoom, which I already have downloaded, and about 10 minutes before I realized it was on Microsoft Teams, and I had to quickly download it. And although it didn't take very long, it was just a very stressful 5 or 10 minutes, which is not the headspace you want to be in right before an interview. So just make sure well ahead of time you've noted which apps, if anything, you need, if there's any login codes or links or anything like that, just have them ready to go much before your actual interview time. Alright, I think that's everything. These things are pretty simple, but I think they'll make a big difference to how professional the whole interview is and how smoothly it runs. At the end of the day, of course, it's more about what you say and how you answer the questions, but all of these things I think help a lot to really make a good impression. Ultimately, just practice, practice, practice as much as you can. Use your webcam, record yourself, and just basically treat the camera like a person, which is rich advice coming from me while I sit here in front of a camera and try not to sound so incredibly awkward. But I mean, with an interview, at least there's someone on the other side actually talking back, so it helps it feel a bit more natural. But that's everything. Hope that was useful, and see you soon. So I'm going to split this video up into 3 sections with you, your background, and nope, those aren't the 3 sections. Cool.